Hi, everyone. Ted Wyman here with another edition of Jet Setting, joined again today by my Sun hockey writer, Scott Billeck. And Scott, there's a lot to take in and digest about the Winnipeg Jets since the last time we talked. Things just haven't been going well. They've been shut out in 3 of the last, I think, 7 games. They've just not looked themselves. They don't seem to have any of those traits that they had early on in the season when they were playing so well and looked like a playoff team and maybe even a Stanley Cup contender. Now they're barely hanging on to a playoff spot. 3 points lead over Nashville, 2 over Calgary. A lot of people not liking their chances at this point just because they've been playing so poorly. I know that's a lot to unpack in one question, but can you put your finger at all on what's wrong with this team?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with their core players going MIA. Many of their core players, I shouldn't say all of them, but many of their core players going MIA over the last 10, 15 games for some of them. 21 for Blake Wheeler since he last scored a goal. 1 in 15 for Kyle Connor. 0 in 9 for Mark Scheifele. 1 in 10 for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's 5 of your top 6 players on this team that make up your 2 top lines. They've gone MIA. Mark Scheifele is dancing to the beat of his own drum right now. He's completely, in my mind, kind of tuned out Rick Bowness and what Rick Bowness wants from him. This, in spite of what Rick Bowness wanting from him, leading to mostly a career high tying 38 goals. It's hard to comprehend. It's hard to understand how this team, which had a formula of winning, that had a formula of becoming the first place team in the Western Conference, simply gave it up. Started adding different ingredients that ruined that mixture. This is a team that, since being in first place in the middle of January, is 13, 17, and 2 since January 15th. It's inexplicable how this team has fallen as far as it has. But it starts with their leadership. It starts with Mark Scheifele, in my opinion, who chose to go one way when he should have gone the other, who is wearing an A but is showing very little leadership on this team, who has not bounced back from being sat for 12 minutes in Carolina 2 weeks ago now, more than 2 weeks ago now. There's really no explanation for it other than the fact that this team is essentially, a lot of them, or some of them, enough of them, let's say, have seemingly given up. And we're at a point here now where they've seen a 6-point lead, at times an 8-point lead on this playoff spot, the final one in the Western Conference, completely tank. It's down to 2 points now. The Jets still have a very difficult schedule ahead of them. They play the New Jersey Devils. They have a crucial games against Nashville and Calgary coming up, and they end the season in Minnesota and Colorado. Do they make the playoffs? Is making the playoffs even a good thing for this team right now, given how they've played? I don't know, but it's going to be a real struggle for them to make it into the playoffs. And they're at the risk of going from the first place team, at least based on points percentage, in early January, to falling out of the playoffs in a complete and utter disaster and an utter failure for this hockey team.
It would be an epic collapse, wouldn't it, Scott? Really, like you could look back at the annals of history and see, that there haven't been many where anyone collapsed quite to that extent. There is still a chance that they could hold on, but you talk about playing Colorado and Minnesota and New Jersey. They got shut out by San Jose. I don't even think San Jose wants to win. They're in a situation where they have a chance to get Connor Bedard, and they go out and they beat the Winnipeg Jets. They've only got 2 wins in 16 games. They were both against the Winnipeg Jets. This is just like that. It was in the headline of your story in the Winnipeg Sun. The Jets have hit rock bottom, and that is, James Reimer played great. There is no doubt he did, and who knows why he's chosen to play his only 2 good games of the month against the Winnipeg Jets, but he has. And it really hurt the Jets. Now, one thing that you've touched on, I think you're right about the leadership issue. I think it's the core that's not getting the job done right now for whatever reason. Okay. And I don't, it's as frustrating as anything, I'm sure, to the fans to see that. We look at Rick Bowness and he sounds exasperated. He doesn't have answers for this. We even got an eye roll out of him last night when talking about a specific player.
Yeah.
This must be like, it almost looks like he's tearing his hair out trying to just get these guys to do what they need to do to play half decent hockey and be able to sneak into the playoffs, but he can't seem to get it right now. Is some of this on Bowness, or do you think that there's just something rotten with the core of this team and you can't fix that?
I do. I think there's some culpability, let's say, for Rick Bowness. I think he's enabled some of this stuff by simply continuing to roll out the same forward lines, or different, very slight variations to the same players. The power play, which has been a woeful 1 for 29 in their last 8 games, including 0 for 9 against the Sharks. I mean, the Sharks have a good penalty kill. It shouldn't matter. But he hasn't really changed that a lot. He's elected to keep Nikolai Ehlers analytically their best player out of the top 6 for large parts, or for parts of this. Demoted him for Tuesday's game against San Jose. He continues to keep him on the second power play unit because apparently Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers can't coexist on the top unit. So yeah, like, I mean, in my opinion, there is some blame to be put Rick Bowness's way. But both can be true. I mean, this core appears to be rotten. I mean, let's call a spade here. This core, when adversity strikes, can't seem to get itself out of it, right? And the best, the best hockey maybe that this team played this season was when some of these players were out of the lineup, and this team was icing guys that have something to prove, that wanted to play hard. This team doesn't have an identity of playing hard at full health. This team doesn't have an identity of much right now. This team seems very splintered. It seems very, lost. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, this team seems to have, or at least enough players have tuned out the head coach, and it might be just 1 or 2 or 3, but the fact that 2 or 3 players can sour everything, that can tank everything, is a telltale sign. That eye roll that you saw from Rick Bowness on Tuesday night was maybe the most overt display of that didn't need words that I've seen in a long time, not just with the Jets, but in hockey. When's the last time you saw a head coach make an eye roll to something one of his players said post game? I think that is born out of pure frustration, exasperation, whatever word you want to use. It's born out of not knowing where the next club in the bag is going to come from, because he's used them all, in my opinion, and there's nothing left to grasp for. It's literally cross your fingers and hope that this team figures it out, and there would be no reason right now to hope that the Jets figure this out, because you saw it against San Jose. This is a team that could not beat at the time. The team tied for last place in the NHL, who, like you said, doesn't need to win, doesn't probably want to win right now. This is a team that talked about before the game wanting to go out there and help Erik Karlsson get to 100 points. And the Winnipeg Jets couldn't beat a team that's trying to get a player a point. Yeah, they kept Erik Karlsson off the score sheet, I believe. There's no room for moral victories here. The San Jose Sharks weren't trying to win that hockey game as much as they're trying to, have their one defense and become the first defenseman since Brian Leetch to hit 100 points. That was the goal for the San Jose Sharks, and the Winnipeg Jets couldn't beat that. They couldn't rise to that. It's inexplicable, Ted.
It really is mind-boggling. Because you lose nothing to Boston, you can expect that. You lose 4-1 to LA, you can expect that.
But they're not even losing the right way, Ted. They're not
I
even
know, but the
losing the right
very
way.
night that Nashville goes out and beats Boston,
Yeah, and you knew that
and
before the
Calgary
puck
goes
drop.
out and beats LA, the Jets
Yeah,
can't even beat San Jose.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's the
that's a pretty telling fact right there.
yeah, I agree, and that's the problem that I have here is that there was like they knew before puck dropped in San Jose last night that the Nashville had pulled within 3 points and would have 2 games in hand after the game was over for the Jets that night, and they knew halfway through the game when they were leading 1-0 because all these guys are checking the standings during the intermission. They knew halfway through that game that Calgary had beaten Los Angeles, team that they failed to beat 2 nights earlier, 3 nights earlier, and moved within 2 points. And the Jets came out and had nothing. They had no motor. They allowed 2 goals in the third period, and their best hockey came with 5 minutes left, and they still couldn't score. I mean, that's
It
where
doesn't make the
I
goals
mean,
magically appear, of course, Scott. I mean, I agree with you, but I mean, just because you say you know that this happened, it doesn't make the goals
no,
magically
but
appear.
where was the
And they did
urgency?
get a lot of shots on goal. They did.
Yeah, well,
They did get some. They did a little better in terms of
but
getting traffic in front of Reimer.
but
But I think I
it's
think
game
you're right.
75 though. It's game
I know it
75,
should be better, but it doesn't
right?
magically make it better. That's all I'm
No,
saying. But how do you fix that in the next little while? I'll tell you one thing that I wouldn't think would be a terrible idea. I think that you already mentioned this, but I think they were absolutely at their best this season when Axel Jonsson, Fjallby, Jensen Harkins, and Mikey Esimont were in the lineup. Though Esimont's long gone, he's playing a role with Tampa now.
yeah,
But those guys seem to be driving this team somewhat. Not completely, but their energy was working, was helping. They're playing better than they are right now. And I mean, I've kind of been a defender of Blake Wheeler over the years, but I've never seen him play worse hockey than he's playing right now. He is not an effective hockey player. He's not really doing anything effective. He doesn't take passes well. Nobody fears his shot. They'll let him shoot because they
yep,
know goalies can handle him.
yep.
He's making the extra pass because of that, and they're preparing for that. He's not effective, and the guy's given a lot of great service for the Jets, and we all know what injury he suffered this year. He gave that for the Winnipeg Jets. There's no doubt about it. You give the guy credit for what he's done, but he's not playing well right now. And you can't help but think that this team would be better served with some different energy in the lineup right now. That's personally how I see it. And Rick Bowness, I think, has that at his disposal, and maybe it's time to do it.
Yeah, I just think that it also runs the risk of doing the same thing that happened to Mark Scheifele. Because who are you sitting if you're bringing those guys out? You got to sit some of the guys that aren't giving you what they need to give, right? So Rick Bowness said on Tuesday, I mean, they need to find, some pride within themselves to figure this out. Well, then you got to start taking out the guys in the lineup that aren't bringing that pride of ownership to the game each night. But then you run the risk, and this is where the double-edged sword is. You run the risk of doing exactly what it did to Mark Scheifele, and essentially tuned him out. 100%.
Opposite of what you wanted it to do.
Exactly, and I think that is the fine line that because of this core, because of how rotten I guess is the word that it's become. You really run the risk of just tuning people out further, and I think that's sort of the tightrope that Rick Bowness has walked over the last couple of months here, because I think he knows. I think he knows really well how fragile some of these guys can be, and I feel that he is trying, and we've seen this. He's gone from being candid to being coddling to doing all these types of things to try and reach these guys. So maybe this is kind of goes against what I'm saying. Maybe it doesn't matter how these guys are going to respond. But at the same time, you can't be sitting your $6, $7, $8 million players either. You need those guys if they do make the playoffs to step up. But right now they're not going to make the playoffs, and I mean that's just the cold hard truth right now. Right now, the Winnipeg Jets aren't on a trajectory to make the playoffs. They can fix that. They still sort of hold, their own fate. And because if they just win, but I mean even now, I mean if Nashville wins out, I mean not that they're going to. They have a really tough schedule. But if Nashville won out, the Jets would miss the playoffs. No matter how, even if the Jets win out. And there's nothing to suggest here the Jets are going to win out. I've even seen some people say, well, if the Jets even went, 5-3 or 5-2 over there, what would give anybody the sense that the Jets can even do that right now? especially
I think
given
Detroit's playing good hockey, aren't they?
Detroit. I mean, you got, first of all, you got to overcome Detroit, then New Jersey, then you have to beat Calgary, which I mean is going to be a really tough out, and that might settle everything in for this playoff spot. Then you got to meet Nashville, which you haven't been able to do all season. I mean, you have beaten them once, but you haven't beaten them as well. And then you got to beat Minnesota and Colorado. I mean, the Jets could finish 2-4, 2-5, just as easily. And then you don't need Calgary to have that great of a record to surpass them, and you don't need Nashville even to have that great of a record to surpass them either. And Nashville found it within themselves with the depleted lineup that they had to beat the Boston Bruins. I mean, that's something. I mean, it's dire straits for the Winnipeg Jets right now. Dire straits, and it's going to be some type of atmosphere on Friday if the Jets can't figure out how to negotiate the Detroit Red Wings.
You don't mean in a joyous way, I don't think either.
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
So, the way I look at it is that it's very disappointing, I'm sure, to a lot of people that you had Connor Hellebuyck, at least for a while, having a Vezina caliber season. You had Josh Morrissey, at least for a while, having a Norris Trophy caliber season. You had Scheifele scoring, at least he was scoring goals at a level that, gave you that elite scoring.
Yep.
Kyle Connor was having a pretty good season points-wise. All of that is dried up, but especially the Morrissey and Hellebuyck part. It's a real waste of seasons like that from two great players to be in this position now. And I mean, it must be very frustrating for them. Somebody, right? Like, you hear the people talk. You mentioned to me earlier before we came on the air about what Paul Stastny said at the end of last season.
Yep.
And, they're all pointing fingers at somebody. Nobody's actually saying who exactly they're pointing fingers at. But somebody in that room is the problem, right? I think a lot of us think we can figure it out. I think you're seeing it play out on the ice right now. But that's the incredible thing about this, is that they've literally let this slip into an entire second season. And I wanna leave on this, Scott, on one last thought from you. If they make the playoffs, or if they don't make the playoffs, is this team in need of a real rebuild next year? And I guess there's a second part to that. How is this market going to respond to that?
I think it is. I mean, to answer your first question, I think they do. Yep. I think top down changes need to be made. I mean, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, how can you sell a plan to owner Mark Chipman after this season, right? After running it back, I mean, what's the plan, right? Are you going to kick the can down the road again with prospects and the hope for better days? I mean, if you're Mark Chipman, do you look at this and you're like, I got to do something here? I mean, because we're not going to have people in the seats if I don't.
They don't have them now.
I know, exactly. And that's, that I think, and to answer your second question, I think that people in this city and this fan base can stomach rebuilding this team if you put guys on the ice that are hardworking players that give it a hardworking effort for people's hard-earned money. I think they can do that because they've done it before, and because it's gotten so stale here and so bad. I mean, can it get a whole lot worse? I'm not sure, because even when you were winning this season, there was people that didn't believe in what was going on, and those people are getting rewarded now for saving their money and not buying tickets to the hockey games. And it's never been cheaper to go to an NHL to go to a Winnipeg Jets game right now. You can get a beer and a ticket to a game for $50. That was unheard of 5 years ago. Unheard of. To think that would be the case. This team is having to find marketing ways to get people to come to the building, and even that's not working at times. So if you're asking if do you need to rebuild? Yeah, I mean, I think something has to happen, right? I think this team needs a new set of eyes on it. It needs from the top down a new management structure on it. This team might need a president of hockey ops that works kind of up and deals with ownership, and then a GM that works down and deals with the day-to-day with the team. It might need a complete structure change like that. But it certainly needs a new set of eyes on it. Win or lose, playoffs, don't know playoffs, unless this team can, perform a miracle of winning the Stanley Cup. And even then, I mean, you have all these contracts that are coming up. You're going to lose Pierre-Luc Dubois for probably peanuts to the Montreal Canadiens, because that's the only place he wants to go, and the Montreal Canadiens have all the leverage then. So what else do you do? I mean, you have to fix the problems on the ice, and you have to fix the problems that have allowed the on ice problems to fester for as long as they have. And yeah, I mean, I think you can sell it, but it has to be sold by somebody else. I don't think that Kevin Shoveldayoff, I don't think you can run it back with Kevin Shoveldayoff and sell hope. I just don't. I mean, that's my opinion on it. But it's been 12 years. You've won 4 playoff series, and the team has never been worse than it is right now.
Yeah.
How do you sell that to a fan base with the same guy in charge? I don't know.
Well, you actually went higher up the chain than I was thinking. Even I was thinking, trades, significant trades, maybe Scheifele.
Well, those will happen too.
Take some of the contract. Dubois is probably gone anyways. I don't even know about Hellebuck at this point. At some point, you might have to just go with all the assets and actually completely start from the ground up on the ice. Anyway, Scott, you've been really insightful today. I appreciate it very much. It's going to be very interesting down the stretch here for the Jets. I don't think too many people have high expectations anymore. That's for sure, with the way they've been playing. But it will be interesting nonetheless. So for Scott Billeck, I'm Ted Wyman, and you have been watching Jet Setting on WinnipegSun.com.